Have a really good think, because somebody you know could earn you a lot of money for very little effort. Think, who do you know that wants to buy a property in Spain? A colleague, a mate, someone in your family, a friend of a friend? If you know someone, go to welcome-estates.com and click the Refer a Friend link. If they buy, you'll pocket a nice chunky thank you from one of Spain's leading estate agents. T's and C's apply. All details at welcome-estates.com.
Welcome to part 2. We will just wait for Julian to click the link and we will proceed with the show. Right? The show. Old Max, say bless him. Come on, Max, you can do better. Right, Julian, I'm going to ask you now about Adrian Mole, aka Ben Shalom. He's been a right mess of a few things, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I'll always start with a caveat. I'm not as close to it as you guys because this stuff pops up on my timeline. I'm like, God, I'm not going to watch this. What I can say is the two big signings, or these massive signings they've given us, Joshua Buatsi and Lawrence Okoli, that tells me all I need to know about Ben Shalom's knowledge of boxing, his commercial acumen, and basically his ability to not talent spot. I mean, you couldn't have got two more boring fighters out there. You've got Joshua Buatsi, who, what road he takes to a light heavyweight title is anybody's guess, because he will get found out at world level. There's no doubt about that. And then you've got Lawrence Okoli, who, I don't care what people say about Lawrence Okoli. All right, I've gone hard on Okoli. Eddie Hearn did a good job for him. Not often I say that, so well done, Eddie Hearn. You did a great job for him. Made him a lot of money, because he's not great. And if you look at his record through a microscope, Lawrence Okoli's record's horrendous. He hasn't beaten one world-class fighter, and anybody who says he has doesn't know what the words world-class mean. But I know that Ben Shalom did some kind of sticky U-turn with the Billy Joe Saunders thing. And I'm disappointed, because I hoped he was a new kid on the block with a lot to learn. And I don't know if he's just got too much free rein. I don't know if he's got any mentor or any role model who's kind of steering him along. But he's not doing a great job. And what I will say is, the undercards, what Sky have put on, I'm ashamed of. There's been a couple of decent fights. There was a couple of decent 10-rounders last week, or was it the week before? But generally, the UK bills that Sky are putting on, that Box are putting on, are absolutely shocking. The best boxing on TV right now, these top-ranked shows from the US that Sky Sports are showing, those are absolutely brilliant from top to bottom. And the terrible job is done with Big Fraser, I think he's really hurt Fraser Clark's reputation with people like myself who believed in Fraser Clark.
Yeah, maybe you're right there. It's Big Freeze he's known as now.
It's just, I mean, do you know what? If you haven't had enough rounds under your belt in the pro ranks, all right, that's fair enough. But wasn't he the one who lobbied for Fraser Clark to be mandated for a British title fight?
Yeah.
And then to just pull him out, it's shameful. You believe in your fighter or you don't. And it's as simple as that. And he clearly doesn't have the confidence in Fraser Clark that Fraser Clark's got in himself. But what happens then, if you're Fraser Clark, you start to ask yourself questions. You can't help but read this stuff on social media and be affected by that. And I don't know one person who's come out and supported Fraser Clark in this situation. And it's not great, is it?
Listen, it's a big giant Karamak Easter egg, and he's melted. Do you know what I mean? I can't believe it. I was bigging him up. I was bigging him up because I know he put hands on Dylan White in sparring a bit back. He proper touched him up. Right, gave him a good working over, and people were saying, woo. And now look.
Yeah, it's bad. and this just makes Fabio Wardley look like, you know, the second coming of Sonny Liston, and it makes Eddie Hearn look great, doesn't it? Because they want that fight. They wanted it. They've done that fight.
Dennis has just texted me and he says, "Can I put this out?" Let's see. Here we are. Let's read it. Hang on, Big Ron. Find him. B. Dave Allen waiting on Fabio decision from Matchroom at board. See if they're going to clear it for British. So they're in mix, aren't they? Dennis will be buzzing. Just let's have it right. He threw Dave Allen out at gym 10 years ago because he wouldn't train and he had thousands invested in him. So he'll be able to get some of his dough back, won't he?
He's entitled to a return. And ultimately, if Dave Allen is serious about boxing, let's stop with these once a year knocking over Belgian road sweepers. Do the Fabio Wardley fight. It does look better when I see him physically. I'm not, you know, he looks a little bit better, does Dave Allen, doesn't he? Recently, when you see him, he looks quite lean. So he's got enough experience. And if you've been in with monsters like Ortiz, then you should be able to fight a guy like Fabio Wardley. And you know what? Give it everything in training camp, put the fight forward, earn a few quid. If you get well beat, it's a nice little farewell fight, probably buy a little house outright from that one. And if you beat him, then you're right back in the mix, aren't you?
If he beats Wardley, he could write his own ticket, can't it, right now?
Makes complete sense. That fight makes total sense.
Well, Dennis, it does, and Dave.
Yeah, of course it does. I mean, how old is Dave Allen? Always seems older than he is. How old is Dave now?
31, isn't he, I think.
So he's 31, all right. He's not exactly ancient, but he's wasted a lot of time, hasn't he? From retirements to fighting journeyman once a year for the last 3 years. He ain't got time to burn, has he? Just crack on and take a big fight. And what we said in part one when we were pretty savage was he'll only test himself fully in a training camp for a fight like Fabio Wardley. Dave Allen knows he can go in the gym, hit the bag for an hour, do a couple of miles on the road, and he can beat these pizza delivery boys who he's been knocking out. He knows he can beat those guys, but he knows to fight a Fabio Wardley, he'll have to really go through a hard training camp to be able to even be competitive.
Well, listen, if he fights White Rhino, right? If he fights the White Rhino, this is how I look at it. Why would Dave Allen be even bothered about Wardley when he's been in with Ortiz, David Price, he sparred Joshua, he's been in with Dylan White, he sparred Usyk, sparred Huey Fury, sparred Usyk. You know, he's sparred Elenius. I think he terrorized Elenius from what I've heard. I know he dropped him. So why would Dave be even bothered about a big stiff white collar like Wardley? It'd be food and drink to him, and they'll all write Dave off if he turns up and he's in mood and he's got all his brain intact for night. You know, when he's on it, he'll smash him to fucking pieces, Wardley. I'm telling you. People keep laughing, but we don't know what Dave Allen's going to turn up. He's a bit like Alex Higgins, isn't he? You don't know what you get, do you?
Dave Allen is just one of those guys, isn't he, who he gets beat by kids he shouldn't be getting beat by.
Exactly.
And that's
terrorizing world-class fighters.
And that's the case with some fighters, isn't it? It's just they're just.
Here, let me just put this out about Dave Allen, right? Dave Allen did all them rounds with Joshua, had his nose broke 5 times and that. But there were times in them spars where he terrorized Joshua. And that's true. McCracken told me
he's tough, isn't he? And he's rugged and he's messy and he's one of those fighters who can spoil a little bit and you never quite know where the shots are coming from. And he's heavy-handed. You know, he's not defensively a genius. He'll never be, you know, mistaken for Willie Pett, but he's a good, honest pro, isn't he? He's not dissimilar to Derek Chisora in style.
I wouldn't say a good, honest pro, because let's have it right. He hasn't looked after himself, has he? You know, he's not done it right. Do you know when he's 50, he'll be sat with his head in his hands in. He will.
A lot of people be doing that, mate. A lot of fighters.
He's had more opportunity than anybody. His book stops with him, and he can correct it just for one night. He's just got to get it all right on one night, and his life can change again. Just like when he beat Brown, it can change. Now he's got another chance if they can get this. And that's
the fight makes sense.
Yeah.
Fight makes sense. I mean, who else are the board going to mandate now? I mean, who else is there? I mean, I don't think
Adelaide.
David Adley would take that fight with Fabio Wardley.
I do.
Do you think he would do?
Yeah.
I don't know.
He can crack him, you know.
He can do, but wouldn't that be Warren going up against Brick? I don't know. Politically, I don't know if
See, they can't get on, can they? All of them.
That's what I'm saying. It's a fight that doesn't make sense. But Dennis will work with anybody. There's no real politics with Dennis, is there?
Dennis was a brass. He'll work with any of them.
Yeah, good for him. I like promoters and managers who will work with
Dennis,
anybody.
I know you're listening, you brass.
I think it's a good fight. Listen, do I think Dave Allen beats him? I'm always honest. No, I don't. But it's a good fight for him.
Yeah. Man, a sec. Let me just get it up on my phone. I sent you some thingies, didn't I? Charlie Edwards. I seen him sparring yesterday at Joe G's, and to be honest with you, it renewed my faith in boxing. Seeing that kid, 18-month hard at ring, and he's changed his style. But let me tell you this: he's got everything in. He glides across the ring.
Well, Charlie Edwards is a fantastic fighter. Both the Edwards brothers are really technically amazing. They were elite amateurs. They won a host of
national. You pay to watch him spar him. Is that?
Yeah, and that's the thing, Russell. Why that's always been my frustration with boxing is the lighter weight fighters are always ignored or forgotten about. So if you remember, I've always worked with and trained smaller fighters generally from featherweight or super featherweight down. Those have been some of the best kids I've ever worked with have been smaller kids, amateur and pro. So the level you'll see from a Paul Butler and Charlie Edwards and the Sonny Edwards and guys such as that are just a way different level technically from anything that you'll see, at the heavier weights. These guys are brilliant, but unfortunately, they don't get paid what they're worth. People are more interested in voyeurism and watching big personalities and big names. And it's such a shame because these are brilliant kids out there. And I've been privileged to see some unbelievable sparring at my gym, at other gyms over the years. And I can only imagine what the quality sparring you get over at Joe Gallagher's, because I've been over to Joe's, Sykes used to spar Stephen Smith, Scott Quigg, Amir Khan over there.
Well, that Charlie Edwards, that's best.
Brilliant.
He's best stylist I've seen since Stephen Smith. I bet him and Stephen Smith, there's not much in it for stylists, for actual what they had in the locker.
Well, the one thing that the fighters have, and they'll have had a lot of these things before they joined Joe, but Joe's really good at kind of tidying people up and getting them to work at mid-range and, but one thing is consistent with all Joe Gallagher's fighters. They've all got good balance. That might sound an obvious thing, but you get certain fighters who don't have great balance. All Joe Gallagher's fighters are really good at being balanced. That you generally don't have a Joe Gallagher fighter who's got a great left hook but a poor right hand, or a great right hand but a poor left hook. Joe's fighters they're kind of rounded and grounded, and he works on all of the aspects of boxing.
That's the university there, isn't it, for a fighter?
It's brilliant, mate. I used to like going to Joe's. I used to go over to Joe when Joe was at Kerry Kay's Better Bodies, when he had the Phoenix gym, and we'd go over there, and he had Joe Murray and John Murray, and I've said this before, he always had videos on. He'd go in there and he'd be watching Gomez, and I always knew some of the things that Joe's fighters would be doing, because we used to prepare for sparring as well as he did for the fights. And Joe liked certain things that certain fighters did. And I won't mention those fighters, but I always knew the fighters who Joe studied. So when I was thinking about getting Sykes ready for fighting one of Joe's kids, a couple of fights didn't turn out, one of them did. I would always study Joe more than I would study the boxer, because I knew the type of things that Joe would like to work on. And that was the case with Crawler and Sykes. And he's just such a good student of boxing. But all boxing coaches lean towards certain styles, don't they? Shane McGuigan likes rangy fighters. Adam Booth likes rangy fighters. They're all about that jab and that range and dropping that right hand over the top. And the Ingles have obviously got their own style. And certain fighters training a certain way. If you look at Tony Sims, you know, he's got a lot of explosive fighters over there. Cordina's slightly different, but, you know, Tony Borg, the guys down in Wales, they've all got certain hallmarks of trainers.
Sanager as well.
Exactly. So what will happen? Well, Joe will
if
get...
you look at Pat Barrett's fighters, they look to take you out, don't they?
Exactly. So they do the big punches. So if you look at Joe, and then I look at the Charlie Edwards, I can look at Charlie Edwards. We haven't seen much of him, but I can appreciate and kind of guess the type of things that Joe will be working on with those guys, and it'll just make him a 5% better fighter. And if you get a Charlie Edwards and make him a 5% better fighter than he was, that's a good level fighter.
Never seen a kid like that set so many traps in 3 rounds of sparring.
Very, 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 very clever.
Very cute. He hit ropes, and oh my God, I was mesmerised by it, mate. We really enjoyed watching.
It's good to see, isn't it? Because you know yourself, you see better sparring in the good quality gyms than you see fights on TV anytime.
That was fantastic what I see, and I tell you what, I see they all put shifts in. Efren, Jonas, a lot of them, Butler, Sean Yackersley. But that Paul Butler, as soon as him sparring, and he was dripping, soaking. He's a proper professional, him.
I've seen Butler spar going back a few years, a good few years ago. I think it was at Arnie Farnell's, but you forget when you're with your own fighter and you're doing your own thing. But I am biased because I can only talk about the fighters I've worked with or seen. But some of the best spars I've seen, probably the 2 best spars I've ever seen were when Gary Sykes sparred Lee Selby down at Tony Borg's gym. That was just, people came in off the street, St. Joseph's gym. They'd let people in. People knew Sykes were coming down. Selby was on fire then. It was just before he won the world title. Sykes it wasn't at his best, but he still had quite a lot left. And I can imagine what you saw last night or what you've seen the last few nights, because I used to be involved in those spars, and Selby and Sykes were just unbelievable spars. The quality was just like amazing. And you're always left thinking, these guys don't earn enough money. And the Paul Butlers and the Charlie Edwards especially, they will have earned decent money, but not
special kids, though, aren't they? Special fighters.
Yeah, they're dedicated. They've got everything. They can do everything. They can box. They can defend. They can counter punch. They can throw punches in bunches. They can do it all. And people don't realize as well, which I'm sure this is what you've seen recently, they don't mess about, do they?
No.
They don't mess about when they're sparring at that level. There's no touching and messing about.
He impressed me. That looks like that Charlie Edwards, just some of the stuff he were doing. And the kid who were in with, I'm not going to say who we were, but the kid who were in were all right as well. But some of the stuff he was doing, his movement and that, I was just sublime, man. Honestly, I was mesmerised by it.
There's some talent in that gym, there really is.
He lost his WBC belt out at ring as well, didn't he? He didn't lose it in the ring, did he?
It's all gone a bit funny as Charlie Edwards' career. What has he had, 1 fight in the last 20 months or something? It's all gone a bit. It's just gone a bit.
He's out next month on Joe's show, isn't it? 9 for June at Bowlers.
And that's what he needs. He's 30-year-old, so he needs to get.
No, Kieran Farrell's show. Sorry, Kieran Farrell's show.
Oh, Kieran puts on some good shows. That'll be good.
Well, to get him on's all right. Cool for them, isn't it?
But he's a big name, isn't he? You know, it wasn't just any old world champion, was it? It was a WBC world champion.
He were, EIS Team GB as well, wasn't he? So
yeah, he's a good amateur. I think he beat Prince Patel several times in the amateurs, didn't
he? Did he?
Yeah.
Well, that's
good.
I
think he beat him easy. Yeah.
Beating him, saying that about Isaac Lowe's wife. What's all that about? Why are people bringing like that in? It's bad, that.
I'll tell you why. Because they can't raise enough interest and excitement with a fist, so they have to do it with the mouth.
Well, it's disappointing. Dubois and Shane McGuigan have parted company.
Yeah, that was a funny one. Something about Family Feud. What's going on there?
I don't know, but the way I look at it, after that performance against that waste man, Lerona, who was basically a pumped-up cruiserweight, who was southpaw, how would that be good practice for Usyk? But if he does fight,
well, I'll tell you what we are seeing.
Cashing him in if he fights Usyk.
What we're seeing now, and we saw this with Big Joe Joyce against Zhang, either fighters can't adapt to sharp southpaws, or the trainers can't.
Yeah.
And we have to start asking questions about this, don't we? Because this is, you know, not every professional world champion is a southpaw. Not everybody who's number one in the division is a southpaw. So what am I saying by that? Southpaws are quite beatable, but you need good brains, and you need good strategy, and you need good preparation to be able to do that. So what's going on with these coaches that they can't seem to adapt against southpaws? Because the GB coaches can adapt. All these GB kids are beating southpaws left, right, and centre. You know, most of the Eastern Europeans and Cubans are all southpaws. They're trained from that way, whether they're right-handed or left-handed. So why are we able to do it at amateur level? But when it comes to fighting useful, I mean, I know Dubois won before anybody corrects me, but there's a dubious circumstances. But what's going on that, you know, you've got these revered trainers, and then the fighters who are good kids are fighting southpaws, and you're going, wow, he hasn't got a clue.
He didn't have a clue with that southpaw Aroni, did he? He
didn't have a clue. He had no idea.
Step. You know what? When he had that trial at Mark Tibbs' gym, Father were there, and Tibbs has went, thank you, but no thank you. And I wonder if that's the same again with Shane McGuigan, where Dubois' father put it snouting, business that don't concern him. All parents in boxing, stay at home. Your kids are in good hands. Stay out the gym.
Parents are nightmares out there in boxing. They're an absolute nightmare.
Get your snouts out.
It's funny how these parents become celebrated trainers overnight, and then when the son disappears, the trainer disappears.
Listen, who was training Tommy Fury? What's that kid's name?
Oh, Alex Matvienko. He did a lot of work.
Right? He's trained Tommy Fury, right? So why is Big John saying he's trained him? Nowhere near him. Training. Full of baloney, all of them. They just invent knackers. Knackers chatters, I call them. Give me
what you got to look at is, you got to say, who have you, in terms of being an elite coach, people put themselves, I don't put myself out as an elite coach, by the way, but in terms of being an elite coach, you can't say you've worked with one kid. You got to work to amateur level for me. You got to pay. I've talked about this before. You got to pay your dues in boxing. If you can't understand boxing at the most basic principle level, 3 1.5-minute rounds, 3 1-minute rounds for juniors, at that inception, at that point where people learn to box. If you can't train fighters at that level and bring them through, what makes you think suddenly you can start training professional fighters or elite fighters? You can't. You've got to pay your dues, and you've got to learn boxing all through the levels. And that's what I class as being the best coaches in this country, Russell. There'll be kids, there'll be coaches who are in the gym every single night of the week with kids of different levels. I really enjoyed the video you put out yesterday with John Fuchs and Big Ron. And Fuchs would be a good coach. I can tell you that straight away, because he was a good technical boxer. He's got a good temperament. He's patient, but he understands the psychological aspect of it. But ultimately, it's not about that now. It's about celebrity coaches. And Shane McGuigan, big, decent coach. But would Shane McGuigan be coaching the fighters he'd coached if he hadn't got the surname McGuigan?
Probably not, but he's turned out to be a good coach, hasn't he? We can't say.
I think he's a good coach, but I think he's good at what he does.
Yeah,
which is the long range stuff. But you get very few fighters that Shane McGuigan trains who can work in the pocket and work inside. So sometimes it's, you know, I don't know how broad he is as a coach. I'm just asking a question. I'm not being critical.
All right. Mark Efron, age 31. He's had 32 fights, 2 defeats, British and Commonwealth champion. He's IBF number 7. And I've said that if he gets a voluntary for Canelo, he's going to take it, isn't he? And people have said he shouldn't be in the ring with Canelo. And I said, well, he's IBF number 7, British and Commonwealth. So well, what do you think? Is he well deserved? I think if he gets offered it, he should take it.
I don't always know if it's deserved or not. My view is this, right? Dave Boy Green fought Ray Leonard. Kevin Lushin fought Tito Trinidad. two all-time great fighters. Sometimes you're in boxing long enough, you get an opportunity, you paid your dues, give him a fight. I've got no issue with it. I've got no issue with Canelo dropping down a couple of levels because Canelo's CV is massive.
Yeah.
He's fought the best guys in the world, and everybody's entitled to a voluntary. And I've got Larry Holmes fought some fighters who were not great. That doesn't mean say that they don't deserve the opportunity. You know what? I'll give you an example, right? So Mark Efron, I'm not saying because he's who he's with, and you know these guys. He fights regularly, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He doesn't turn fights down, right?
Oh.
Does he deserve a shot at a world title any less than someone like Callum Smith, who boxes once a flood? Just because he's been an elite fighter. Whatever happened to being active, fighting regular and earning world title shots? So does he deserve a shot any less just because someone might have more ability than him, but happens to not be in the gym?
Well,
give him a chance.
Well, this is how I look. Rocky Fielding fought Canelo, didn't he?
Well, if you're in the gym, if you're training hard and you'll take on anybody, sometimes you get an opportunity, don't you? Whereas what seems to happen now is people just sitting active, waiting for the phone to ring. And this is this 2023 generation. I'm entitled because I'm a big name. I've got a massive following on Instagram. I'm this, I'm that, I'm special. So I'm just going to sit and wait for my title. It's a little bit like, I like Anthony Yard, yeah? But you know what Yard's going to do now, don't you?
Yeah.
He's just going to stay inactive and then just wait for another big fight. So my view is give the kids who are in the gym, who are out there fighting 3-4 times a year in 50-50 fights, let those guys have an opportunity. Too many people sat waiting for opportunities that are not proving to be like full-time professional boxers. You know me, I'm all about activity. Every time you talk to me, I'm always about active fighters. So if he's in the gym, why doesn't he deserve a shot?
Well, like I said, he's IBF number 7. Canelo's the champion. The mandatory's not due. He could call a voluntary. Canelo, he holds all the aces, doesn't he? He's the man.
As a champion, you can have your voluntary. You can fight whoever you want as long as they're ranked. And if they're ranked and it makes commercial sense, who are we to stop that? As long as boxers fulfill their mandatories, we shouldn't be too concerned about who their voluntaries are against.
Well, listen, he's not going to fight Benavidez because his arsehole's nipping. So go down the rankings, look at them 6 above Mark Efron, and I'm going to read them out to you now, pal. I'm going to read them out to you. Here we go. Number 1, William Skull. Number 2, Vladimir Shishkin. Number 3, Edgar Berlanga. Number 4, Aslabek Idigov. Number 5, Ali Akhmedov. Number 6, Pedro Ivanov. Them 6 there, I don't see them on a billboard with Canelo. And then you've got Mark Efron, number 7. So 3 of them are all tied up. One's injured. If they go down IBF, I'm telling you now, Mark Efron could get the nod. We've seen We've seen people come from nowhere before, haven't we? We saw with that guy Bricktop dug up off a beach. Nicky Cook. They put him in at number 11 and gave him for Ricky Burns, didn't they?
Ricky Burns, yeah. Nicky Cook, he was injured.
That cost Bricktop his deal with Sky, didn't it? So everybody was saying.
I'd forgotten about Nicky Cook. He had a bad back, didn't he?
They dug him up after 18 months, put him in at number 11.
Couldn't train. He had a bad back, and they put him in with a bad back.
Sky went, thank you. Went, no, thank you. That's how Eddie Earns lot went in on Sky, didn't they? That screaming for exclusive. That were the catalyst. That were Bricktop's downfall, that fight.
Listen, I don't follow boxing as much as you guys. If you ask Kent's brilliant.
Ask Kent, he'll tell you about that. He'll dig all paperwork.
But those names you've just given to me, I've got to be honest. I swear, I've never heard of any of them. Maybe I'm just too far away from boxing. I have never heard of any of those fighters.
Well, like I said, them 6 and above, Mark Efron with IBF. Who are they? Nobody knows. And a few of them are tied up and one's injured. So Mark Efron could be in the mix to get in there with Canelo.
Well, Canelo's got three huge audiences and followings, hasn't he? Is Mexico stands to reason. The US is where the money's at, and in the UK, everybody knows Canelo is a big name. So, from a commercial point of view, if you're going to have a voluntary defence, you pick somebody who commercially it works, don't you?
Yeah.
And that's just
a good fight for him anyway, because he might be on slide, him Canelo. And if he has a bad night office and the kid from Oldham has a good night, old kid Dynamite, it could be lights out. We've seen
if he gets
bigger upsets.
Well, we have seen bigger upsets, and if he gets turned over, what the other guys you've just named who I've never heard of, they'll get turned over as well.
Yeah.
I've said to you before, I'm repeating myself. I got no issue with voluntaries as long as fighters fulfil the mandatories.
It's ranked number 7. It's ranked number 7, and it looks like it could be a little bit political or a bit trafficky and a little bit clogged up above him. And like I said, none of them names jump out at you, so why not?
Why not? Yep, I don't object to that.
Yeah, exactly. 2 seconds. Right. Oh, Hughie Fury, I interviewed him yesterday. Well, obviously I interviewed him, and you know how I'm like for wording stuff. We stuck it on Wilder, didn't we? I like to be controversial.
Why not?
Oh, hey, listen, I tell you what, Hughie's looking well. 19 Clem.
Yeah, he's put a little bit of weight on. Peter was saying,
looking well, mate. Nice to see him. We're asking me if I can cook. I says, yeah, a little bit. Bit of sea bass.
He seems a nice guy,
on Georgie, eh?
He's a quiet lad, isn't he? He seems a nice, quiet lad.
He's a lovely kid, Hughie, man. You couldn't meet a nicer kid. Quiet.
You can see that.
Lovely lad. Honestly, him and his brothers are lovely. Nice to see his brother Peter Jr. there as well. I've got a lot of time for him. Nice to see Savannah. She's not very well yesterday, but nice to see Peter. But yeah, I like to see Peter Fury Jr. He's a character. But yeah, listen, Hughie's back in the mix. He's going to get he's having a fight to shake the rust off, and let's get behind him. He's only 28.
Well, he's tested himself before. He's come up short. Probably didn't have the experience at that time to deal with those fights. You know, the Parker fight is debatable. But ultimately, to me, a loss doesn't mean anything. You know, it just doesn't mean anything whatsoever. There's fighters who have become better fighters because of defeat. It's made them grow. It's made them wiser. And there are other fighters who can't deal with defeat, who just implode. And, you know, if you look at Anthony Joshua, he's never been the same since. But if you look at Hughie Fury, he doesn't look to have lost any appetite for boxing. And
Hughie's got an edge to him, actually. I don't know. There's a bit of a... I don't know, maybe timing might be right for him now. I just see... I don't know, he's just got something about him. No.
Is he good enough to beat the elite fighters? I'd say no. But is he good enough to beat anybody from number 4 to number 8? I would say yes.
Interesting.
Well, not everybody can be number 1. Listen, it doesn't matter, does it? There's some useful heavyweights in every generation who are there or thereabouts, and on a good night, you know, anything can happen. But what Hughie Fury does have, what few fighters have at heavyweight, is he has a lot of ring craft. He looks like someone who probably spars all the time, whether it's touch sparring, conditioned sparring, open sparring. He probably does a lot of sparring, does Hughie, because he's just got that natural fighting instinct about him. He's very slippery. He's very defensive. He's a bit of a spoiler. I don't know if that's by design or by not. You know, heavyweight divisions over the years have been full of spoilers who can mess you around, who can tie you up. And it'd be a nightmare for most fighters. And there's not many people, I think, would iron him out, put it that way. And
Never been on floor, has he?
No, he's a tough guy. But when are all these fighters going to get their opportunity, though, Russell? Because there's a big...
up, isn't it? It's like this Saudi thing. What do you think to that? It's all lip service, isn't it? Look at Eddie taking short end, 30 million. Oh, well, 30 and Tyson 90. Look, it's all telephone numbers. Load of shit. You're David Day the other day on radio. He called it, right?
I think Joshua will fight Wilder.
Yeah.
that's a fight I think will happen because it makes sense for them both. Wilder's never going to beat Fury, and AJ is never going to beat Usyk. Wilder's what now, 37-year-old. Joshua's appetite. He now looks to be a commercial animal and nothing else instead of a true competitor. Still a good fighter. And I think the fight makes sense. I guess the challenge that we've got there is if Wilder absolutely demolishes AJ, there's really nowhere that he goes, is there? Because, I think that it's the jeopardy in that fight which makes it a good fight because I think Joshua, I think it's a 50-50 fight. I don't think it's a one-round definite fight that a lot of people do. I think it's a 50-50 fight. But if Wilder does win that fight, it would be in devastating, clinical, brutal fashion. And if AJ was to win that fight, I think it's a long, hard, calculated night. And I think that's why it's an intriguing fight. As I've said, there's jeopardy in there. And it makes sense. So it's a case of spit all the get off the pot. And do you know what? If you put a gun to my head and said pick a winner, you might not agree with this. Few people would. I might even think Joshua beats him.
Wilder.
Mm.
Well, Carl Froch said he beats him in a round.
Oh, you think he thinks Wilder beats AJ?
Easily in one round, he said he likes.
I think Joshua might beat Wilder. I don't know. It's not a confident pick. I think Wilder's technically terrible, but he does have a good right hand, and he can't be that bad technically because he lands it enough times, doesn't he? But I guess it's against who? I think Ortiz age beat Ortiz in both those encounters. Clearly the right hand knocked him unconscious, but I think had Ortiz been 3-4 years before then, that would have been a different result. But Ortiz was, it was put on ice, wasn't it, until he was beatable. But I think Wilder's technically not great. But yeah, what he does with the right hand is unbelievable, to be fair. And, it's a decent jab on him. He's got a heavy jab on him. It's a bit telegraphed, but I don't know. I think it depends what version of Joshua shows up. But I don't buy into the fact that Wilder automatically just blows Joshua away. I think Joshua's got a really good chance in that fight.
Well, where do you see DAZN now? After this 400-pound men, 56 stone going at it with tits.
See DAZN
now, eh?
See DAZN giving more dates to these men with tits. I see them giving more dates because you know what?
Elio's not bigging it up, is he?
The one thing you notice about these shows, because look, I said before, you see the highlights, you see what goes on. And one thing I read about the DAZN shows, these Misfit shows, was the crowd's there from the first fight all the way through the bill. And boxing could learn from that because that just doesn't happen, does it, in professional boxing? They just come in for the chief support on the main event and for Sweet Caroline. And that's such a shame. So if these Misfits are getting massive views, I think what you're going to see is 2 or 3 UK shows for pro fighters, and you're probably going to see all these dates get swallowed up by Misfits. But it'll have a shelf life. I'm sure it'll have a shelf life where it becomes a little bit, the novelty wears off, or maybe we get a casualty that might make people look at themselves again. But in terms of DAZN, I do think end to end the regular shows on DAZN are better quality than the Sky ones. I think the end to end Eddie shows are better quality than Frank Warren's shows, if I'm being completely honest. But yeah, I do. I think Frank Warren's shows are awful, actually.
Eddie's slipped though, hasn't he?
Oh yeah, he's slipped, but I just believe in being honest, and I believe in giving people the dues. And I haven't watched a Frank Warren show for a while because I just got so tired of these 60-54 prelims and then being able to predict all the fights on there. And I think that's not great. And I think the one thing that we have been getting from the DAZN shows, I mean, the Joe Cordina fight, I don't subscribe to DAZN, as you know, but I listened to it on the radio. It sounded unbelievable. And by all accounts, it was a great fight. The Leewood and Lara show. These are 50-50 fights at least. And Frank Warren and Sky aren't giving us 50-50 fights, Russell.
Yeah. Well,
they're not, mate. They're not.
Okay. Well, listen, thanks for coming on.
You're welcome.
Gentlemen, as usual, all the best for the rest of your evening.
You take care.
I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks for watching, everybody. You take care, Russell.
Bye. Bye. I'm now going to check how many leads I've got with Welcome Estates. God, people just love villas in Spain. Buy before the boom. Peace out. Porky's Corner is proud to be sponsored by Spartan Site Solutions. They are specialists in civil engineering and demolition contracts for the construction industry. Interested parties should visit their website or contact Porky's Corner for a referral at porkycorner@mail.com.